Unfortunately, many countries around the world are taking a more relaxed approach to drugs, including decriminalization and legalization. This often is based on a lot of push by drug companies which stand to profit through lobbying, but also because many countries have lost the law. They're not able to enforce it anymore. And so they say, what can we do? Let's go down this route. And sometimes a misguided approach, I think, to what human rights involves. So what happens? Often the demand for drugs increases. That in turn encourages syndicates and traffickers to supply more drugs, causes more harm to society. It's really a vicious cycle that they get into, entire countries. But even against this global background, in Singapore we have managed to keep our situation relatively drug-free, relatively safe. So if we look at a CNBC report recently, it pointed out that in 2023, last year, the US had more than 100,000 deaths, whereas we have 20. But if you normalize it, the US population is much bigger, 350 million or so. But if you normalize it for relative population size, and if we had the same drug situation as the United States, we should be having 1,600 people dying. Instead, we only have 20. 20 in my view is too much, but 1,600 in a small place like Singapore. Just imagine that. So, put another way, our drug policies have saved us, even on that count, more than 1,000 lives per year for some years. Let me give you another example. Last year, CNB seized around $15 million worth of drugs. In comparison, Hong Kong, often compared to Singapore, seized almost $760 million worth of drugs just in the first 11 months. In Hong Kong, trafficking activities were carried out by syndicates working across borders, and more than 8.54 tons of drugs were trafficked into Hong Kong. In Singapore, traffickers are careful. They know that we have the capital punishment, serious punishments. So either they don't traffic, or if they do traffic, they keep the amounts small. So in 2022, the Straits Times interviewed an ex-drug trafficker who described how he used to calculate drug quantities to avoid capital punishment. He said, and I quote, let's say there was no death penalty, we would have gotten a lot more. There's a clear evidence for this. In 2018, my ministry did a research work amongst convicted drug traffickers. And it showed clearly they calculated, they restricted the amounts they trafficked so that they will not face the death penalty. And we went further, we conducted research in the region around Singapore from where many of our drug traffickers come from. And we did a statistically valid, a proper survey, asked them questions. Remember, these are places from which our drug traffickers, those who are being arrested come from. 86% of the people who answered the survey said the death penalty, they believe the death penalty does not want people to commit serious crimes in Singapore. 87% believe that the death penalty means people will not want to traffic substantial amount of drugs in Singapore. And 83% said they believe even if you lock me up for life imprisonment, the death penalty is more effective as a deterrent. Because if you have the death penalty, I'm more scared, I'm more worried, I wouldn't want to do it. So death penalty clearly is a much greater deterrent, and that has helped restrict the supply of drugs in Singapore. But everything I've said doesn't mean we don't face challenges. We face a lot of challenges. young people today have many sources of information where drugs are glamorized, online, films, entertainment industry. So last year, we saw an 18% increase in the number of new drug abusers arrested. And more than half were under the age of 13. Picking up teenagers, young adults, they have a full and bright future ahead of them, but now potentially risk a lifetime of drug addiction unless they manage to kick the habit. And we have to try our best to stop, in fact reverse the trend. And part of building a drug-free culture, part of getting the message across to civilians, part of getting everybody to understand is this Remembrance Day. It's one of our key initiatives we are launching this year. It reflects our determination to show the harms caused by drugs and bring it to the forefront of the consciousness of our people in Singapore. And it's also a key way of bringing across a message. You saw the 3 videos. Drug abuse is not victimless. There are a lot of victims, and many of them are truly innocent. So an activist campaigned for a trafficker who calculated and brought drugs into Singapore in order to make money. Does your sympathy go for him? Or it goes for a little girl that you saw? And that little girl, that depiction is not untrue, it's very reflective of what. But worse things happen, and I'll come to 1 or 2 cases later. But who are the victims? First, the abusers themselves are victims because their physical and mental health will suffer as a result of addiction. Second, their families, loved ones also suffer silently, invisibly. They will care for the abuser. They have at times care for the children of the abuser, the dependents who are neglected by the abuser. They also show the emotional, the financial, physical fallout as a result of the drug addiction of a member in the family. Third, the rest of the community also suffer. Could be target of crimes because people need to commit crimes in order to feed their habit. They could be the target of violence that drug abusers often exhibit when they are under the influence of drugs. And even if you don't come into contact, you are also a victim because drug abuser and drug abuse increases healthcare costs and everybody pays for it. So at the same time, we also want through this day to remember those who have overcome drug abuse and the struggles that they face to overcome their addiction. I quoted a number of examples in Parliament. One such example is Hannah Chun. Hannah was first caught for drug abuse when she was 17 years old. She relapsed several times, in fact even gave birth to her son while she was in prison. But in 2009 when she came out, she decided to kick the habit, and she has remained drug-free since then. And she gives back. She volunteers with the Singapore Prison Service as a befriender. She also leads the Women's Prison Ministry at her church, administering to inmates and ex-offenders. We would like to thank Hannah and many other Hannahs for championing the anti-drug cause and showing that overcoming the drug abuse is possible. I'll now say a little bit more about this campaign. It began 2 weeks ago. It will last for 2 more months. Leading up to today, members of the Inter-Ministerial Committee on Drug Prevention have organized several activities. The MPs and office holders that you see in front are members of the Inter-Ministerial Committee which I chair. I would like to thank the Ministry of Education for organizing school assembly programs and lessons for our students. Teachers have screened the campaign films that all of us watched earlier. They get the students to reflect on what they have watched. Engaging students is a top priority so that they understand the harm of drugs and don't get swept away by what they see online lifestyles. I would also like to thank the ministries in the interministerial committee, the institutes of higher learning, MOE in particular, People's Association, which have used community spaces, MINDAC for hosting many exhibitions in their community spaces. All of this was done prior to today's exhibition. After this weekend, a smaller scale version of this main exhibition will be brought to 8 different locations around Singapore over the next 8 weeks. The aim is to reach out to many more Singaporeans. In the exhibition, you will see stories shared by families whose loved ones have been brought up with drugs. These stories are extracted from a book launched by the Singapore Prison Service titled Waiting. These are real, unfiltered stories. They show the harm that drugs cause. One story titled My Absent Father. The victim described how her father was addicted to drugs and abused her physically. She said, and I quote, "Although the physical pain of his abuse has left me, the emotional pain continues to live in my memory." Despite this, she still speaks of how much she longed for her father's love and her hope that he would return drug-free so that they can share a happy future together. This is just one story. There are many others, vivid, heartbreaking accounts showing how everyone suffers. Just as importantly, the exhibition will also tell the stories of those who cannot speak for themselves. The victims who have lost their lives because others have abused drugs. We want to give a voice to all these victims. Some of you may know or read about Nona. In 2006, this 2-year-old girl died. Her stepfather was addicted to cannabis. He dumped her repeatedly in a pail of water to stop her from crying. She, 2 years old, helpless, defenseless against her stepfather. She died from the incident. Unfortunately, she was also found with injuries that suggested that she had been sexually assaulted by the very people she relies on to protect her. Another example, in 2019, a 24-year-old man killed his 56-year-old mother, Madam Lee, and his 90-year-old grandmother, Madam C, after taking LSD. He said he took LSD out of curiosity to the experience of sensory changes, turned violent, stabbed both of them. 2 innocent lives lost just like that. Last year, a 31-year-old man crashed his rental car to the side of a public bus. He was under the influence of ecstasy, meth, and amphetamine, which affected his ability to drive safely. He died, but 7 innocent passengers in the bus were injured. I'm just giving you 3 incidents. Thankfully, in Singapore, these incidents are limited in number. As I said, many people have died. Of course, many more victims, but relative to other countries, a small number. So, we want these victims to be remembered rather than just arguing on behalf of traffickers who are the cause of the problems, who are how to make money from these killings and deaths. So I'm going to ask all of you to join me lighting a candle, observing a moment of silence to remember all the victims who have suffered. Thank you.
Thank you very much.